So today's daf yomi is Bava Kamma 115, but we're going to start on the bottom of 114b at the Mishnah, which is approximately 10 lines from the bottom. And today's daf yomi introduces us to a powerful idea called Takonas Hashuk, the reform the rabbis made for the marketplace. That in a circumstance where a person has something where Reuven, let's say, would steal Shimon's watch and sell it to Levi, then Levi has the watch, and Shimon says, "That's my watch. You stole it from me." So Levi has to return the watch to Shimon, but Shimon has to pay him for the watch because otherwise Levi would be afraid to buy anything from on the marketplace, and so therefore it's Shimon's job to go and recover the money from Reuven. It's not Levi's job to do that. So now we say in today's and the Mishnah, Hamakir Kelav Usfar of Biaracher. So somebody recognizes that his utensils or his sefarim, his books are in the hands of somebody else. V'yatzel Shem Geneva Ba'ir. And now there was the name was going out in the whole city that this was stolen, that this was this person's stolen objects. Yishavalo. And then we say under these circumstances, the Yishavalo Alokeach, the purchaser has to swear to him, Kama no son, how much did he give for it? And V'yitol, and then he could take that money back from the owners, meaning to say that the owner has to pay for this stolen object that he wants to get back, but the guy has to give it back. V'imlav, but if there was no shame geneva in the town, it didn't go out in the city that it was stolen. If there wasn't this rumor about it that it was stolen, lav kol menu. Then he doesn't have to return it to him. Shani omer because I could always say, listen, the reason why I have it is because you sold it to somebody else and I bought it from him. There's no evidence and there's no rumor that it was stolen. You don't have to do it. So the Gemara says, but what do we care if there's just a rumor that it was stolen? What do I care if there's a rumor that it was stolen? Maybe, why don't we have to be concerned that maybe he sold it and then he started the rumor himself? The Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Rav, could go. No, we're talking about a case. Shabo Geneva Ba'ir. No, so Shabo B'nei Adam B'Sochbei. So no, we're talking about a case where people stood up in the middle of his house, the Amad, and the Hifkin B'Laila. You know the word in Hebrew for a rally or a demonstration is called Hafkana. So people stood up in his house in the middle of the night, and they started screaming and saying, Ning Nevu Kli. He says, my utensil was stolen. Meaning there was this circumstances. So the Gemara says, well, Kol Shekain Ilu Amad. So maybe that's part of his plan. That's part of his pretext. We're on page 114b at the bottom. He says, we're 114b at the very bottom. So he says there's certainly a case where he could say he found the pretext. So Rav Kahana Masayim B'Mishmei Derav. No, we're talking about a case. He could go and show some Machteres Chatura B'Sof Peso. Now, maybe there was a guy digging into his house in a tunnel in the middle of the night, and then there were people who were sleeping in his house, and they were holding the bags on their shoulders, and everybody was saying, oh, this guy's utensils were stolen. So that's why it was everybody saw that they stole it. So the Gemara says, but still, the Dilma, but maybe they saw the Kalim, but they didn't see him steal the books. No, we're talking about here is Amar Rabbi Yochanan can go in the Kamri Nami Sefarim. They said utensils and books. The Gemara says, maybe they stole. Why don't we have to be concerned that maybe they stole small books and he's claiming that they stole large books? Amar Rabbi Yosef bar Chanina, the Gamri Sefer Poni Uponi. He says, no, this book of this guy was stolen. Maybe it was an old book and he's claiming it was a new book. Amar Rav could go in the Amri. Halalu Kelev Shal Ploni. Halalu. They said this book, this is his utensils, and Halalu is Sfarav Shal Ploni, and these are his books. So the Gemara says, Umi Amar Rav Achi, is this really the case? Amar Rav, but didn't Rav tell us? Bava Machteres v'nata Kalim v'yatza pater. My time b'dmei kanananu. Did Rav really say this? Didn't Rav say if a person comes in, he's tunneling into your house and he steals your utensils, at that moment he's exempt from having to pay it back because he acquired it with his blood. What this means is because since you're allowed to kill him, we have the principle, Rav has the Chiddush, that we apply the principle of Kimle b'derabbi minei, even under these circumstances, that we could say, it's 114 at the bottom. You have it, Bill? What's the matter? You have the place? So he says, you have the wrong book? Okay. So he says, and so therefore he would be exempt from having to pay because he could say, B'dmeikum no, because of Kimle b'derabbi. So if that's the case, why does he have to pay it here? So why is he responsible? So the Gemara says, why would we say he's exempt from having to pay? And that's because he was tunneling into the house, and so therefore, since he was liable for death, because he was giving over his life, therefore he's exempt. Avohani, but these people, they were invited into the house, so they weren't giving over their life for death. Well, we wouldn't say the Chiddush here. Says Rava, Amar Rava, also in Korkelov. When do we say this principle? Says Rava, when do we say this principle? Now you need to say these are the utensils of this person, these are his books. Only by a person who was typically going to sell his utensils. But if he wasn't going to sell them for any reason whatsoever, you don't need to say that it was this specific person's book, etc. It's sufficient to say that he had this in his house, because we don't have to be concerned that he sold it, because he's not a guy who sells the stuff. Mar says, so, but maybe he needed the money, and for that reason he sold it. So says Rav Asher, no. There was, in addition to the fact that he doesn't sell it, there was the idea that in the town that it was stolen. So we have these two pieces of evidence, and therefore we don't have to be so specific in describing the situation. Now the Gemara says, in Marganav, let's say it was stolen, and then he sold it, and then we found the thief. Rav Mishmei Rabbi Chia Amar Hadinim Arishon. He says, Rav said in the name of Rabbi Chia, go back to the first person and get the money from the thief. Rabbi Yochanan Mishmei Rabbi Yana says, Amar Hadinim Asheni. No, that you could even get it from the person who he sold it to. Meaning to say, at first glance, it seems like Rav in the name of Rabbi Chia, that Rabbi Yochanan in the name of Rabbi Yana is not saying this concept of Takonos Hashuk. Rav is saying Takonos Hashuk. You go back, you as the person who was robbed, your only complaint is against the thief, not against the guy you sold it to. Whereas Rabbi Yochanan says, no, you can even go up to the second guy. I'm Rav Yosef, lo puigi. Rav Yosef says, actually, they're not arguing. Before Yeush, Adinim Hasheni, before you gave a pope, then you can make a complaint even against the guy who bought it. But after Yeush, after you gave a pope, then you don't have a complaint against the guy who bought it. Your complaint is only against the thief. Adinim Arishon. Both of them hold this case, hold like the position of Rav Chisda, that you can claim from whichever one you want. Okay, so now Amalei Abaye, do you not think that they're arguing? Do you think they're not arguing about this case, that one holds that we say the concept of Takonos Hashuk and one says we don't? The Matnas Kahuna is the gifts that a Kohen is entitled to, and you can't imagine that every Kohen in the world gave up hope of getting these gifts back. Like, for example, the stomach of the animal, or the tongue, the jaw. So that's like it's before Yeush. And we still see there's an argument about it. The Tanam we learned in the Mishnah in Chulin, Amar. If he says, sell me the stomach of the cow, and within this stomach of the cow, they had the parts of the cow that go as a gift to the kuna, i.e. the keva, which is called the law. No Kohen. Then you have to give it to the Kohen. And you don't deduct from the price because you assume that was part of that it was included in the price. But the Amar Rav and Rav said, "Well, shanu al shashaku atzmo." Oh, excuse me. But if he took it as a weight, he said, "Give me 5 pounds," and then when he gave it to him, he gave him the parts that he has to give to the Kohen. No, still a Kohen. And you don't pay you don't pay the person that price. When do we say that you have to give, that you deduct it from what you have to give him? When do we say this? Only where he weighted himself, but if the butcher weighed, so the butcher is the one who stole it, then he has to make the claim against the butcher, even though it's before Yeush. So therefore we see from here that Rav follows the reasoning that the din is with the first one and not the second one, because the butcher is the one who stole it. And so we see from here Rav does not follow this position of Rav Chisda that you could claim from either one. Gemara says, "Aima aftin amatabach." No, you can go to either one. Gemara says, "Well, Mao the Tema, you might have thought Eiman Naskuna and Exels. You might have thought that the gifts of the Kohen cannot be stolen. Kamashmon that they can." Gemara says, "Well, Abai Damar Pligi, b'mai Pligi, b'Rav Chisda." So according to Abai, who says they're arguing, what are they arguing about? So they're arguing with the din of Rav Chisda, who said that you could collect from either one. Rabbi Yochanan holds like Rav Chisda, and therefore he says the din is with the second one. Rav does not hold like Rav Chisda, he says the din is with the first one. Rav Zvid says, even though he says that Rav and Rabbi Yochanan are arguing, he says he explains it different. Rav Zvid Amar Kagonchen is Yashu Abalim Biad Lokeach, one is Yashu Biad Ganim. He says, no, we're talking about a case where the owner gave up hope, but he gave up hope after it was already sold, but now it was still in the hands of the thief. And this is their argument. One says that if you give up hope and then afterwards you acquire it, if you gave up hope and then afterwards it changed domains, then you acquired it. But but if it changed domains and then it was acquired, and then gave up hope, you haven't acquired it. Rav Papa says, "Beguima de kuyama lo pligi the harder amari." Rav Papa says, if it would be a case of that the dispute is even before Yeush, and nevertheless, they're not arguing that if it was before that in the din of Rav Chisda that prior to Yeush that he would go against the purchaser, and therefore by a coat, like if he stole a garment, everybody would agree that the purchaser could go back to the owner. Here they're arguing about whether they instituted Takanos Hashuk. Rav Mishmei Rav Chia Amar Dinim Arishon. He says you go back to the first one. The purchaser goes and gets the money from the thief. So Rav, according to Rav Papa, he says there's no Takanos Hashuk. According to Rav. Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rav Yanai says Dinim Mashini Dinim Lokach call me Balabayit. So also about Takanos Hashuk. He says no, that there is Takanos Hashuk, and so the purchaser can get the money from the original owner. So the Gemara says, does Rav really say Lo Asu Bo Takanos Hashuk? V'Sava Rav Lo Asu Bo Takanos Hashuk. But Rafuna Talmidei de Rav. Rafuna was Rav's student, and the assumption is that a student would never argue with the Rebbe. And then there was a case of Chanam Bisha. Chanam, the bad one, was a Ganav, and he was a Ganav Guima. He bought a coat, V'Zamna, and he sold it. And also coming to Rafuna. And then he came to Rafuna and Amrei Hu Gavra Zil Shari Avateich. He said to this person, go and remove the pledge that's in your hand, meaning say give him the money in order to buy it. So we see Rafuna that we do say Takanos Hashuk. And this is not like what you just said, Rav said doesn't say Takanos Hashuk. So the Gemara says, no, why is that case? Why is this the case? Why is this the case? Shani Chanam Bisha, the case of Chanam Bisha is different. Even the Leko Ishtalume, since the purchaser cannot take him to court, it's like he didn't know the thief. So Amarava, Imganav Meforsim, who also bought Tanakamas Hashuk. Rava said, if it's a well-known robber, we don't do Takanas Hashuk. The Gemara says, well, Chanam Bisha the Meforsim. Chanam Bisha was very well known. And yet we still did Takanas Hashuk. The Gemara says, He was known as a bad guy, Bolaganevasa will enforce him, and he wasn't known as a robber. Itmar. So now we're talking about circumstances where we don't apply the position of Takanas Ashuk because the purchaser should have known that it was stolen and therefore or was something unusual and he shouldn't have bought it. Ganavu para b'chovo. So let's say what are the cases? Let's say somebody stole it and he used it to pay his debt. Ganavu para b'keif, or he stole it and he used it to pay the thing that he owed on credit. Then we don't say the principle of Takanas Hashok, the Amri Lo Adaite Dahanu Yeheves Midi. We say because the purchaser should never have known, didn't really need to realize in that case that he was buying something stolen. And so therefore he doesn't have to return it to the guy from whom it was stolen. And so therefore, there's no Takanas Hashok in that case because the purchaser had no idea of knowing it was stolen goods, because he didn't actually give money for it. It was given to him to pay off a debt or to pay off a responsibility. Mashkanta, let's say you have a pledge, Shave Motzam B'meya, but he gave the pledge way more than it was worth. It was worth 200, and he gave for something worth 100. He gave extra. That we're going to say we do apply the principle of Takanas Hashuk because he gave him more, and so therefore it's unusual. But Shava b'Shava, there we wouldn't say Takanas Hashuk. I mean, we're also about Takanas Hashuk because they're clearly under those circumstances, he would have lended him without the mashkan. Marzucha Amar also about Takanas Hashuk. He did Takanas Hashuk on that point in that case. The Zabina Shava b'Shava. Let's say he sold something for the same amount. Also about Takanas Hashuk. But Shava Mea b'Masam. Let's say he sold something worth 100 for 200. Rav Sheshes Amar also about Takanas Hashuk. He said we didn't do Takanas Hashuk there because that's not considered like you're giving the money because it's obviously unusual. In all these cases, we say also about Takanas Hashuk. In all these cases, we apply Takanas Hashuk. Except for the case where he stole and he paid off his debt, or Ganavu Parabekef, or he paid off his credit, because there the guy wasn't buying anything, so we don't apply it. Now we have a case, Avimi Barnazi, it actually spells Nazi. Avimi Barnazi, Chamud Ravina, he was the father-in-law of Ravina, Avaimasik, and Baul Gavra. He had a claim against a certain man, Arba Zuz. He claimed 4 Zuz against him. Ganav Glima. So this guy went and he stole a coat, and he brought it to Avimi. When we shouldn't apply Takanas Hashuk there. And then he borrowed another 4 Zuz for him. It was sold Fukar Aganav. And then in the end he discovered it was stolen. Also Kame to Ravina. So Avimi came before his son-in-law, Ravina, to ask him the question whether or not he can ask for the money from the person from whom it was stolen. So Amar Kamai, so Ravina said to him, the first one, Ganavu Parabachovo, so there, that's a case where the guy stole and he paid off his debt, then we didn't do Takanas Hashuk there, and he doesn't need to give you anything. But Hanach Arba Zuzi Achrini, but these other 4 Zuz that you lent him on account of the garment that he brought to you, there we did Takanas Hashuk. So Shekol Zuzech Radar Glimi, take your money and get back and return the coat. So Maske for Rav Kohen, Vidilma Glima Bahani Zuzai Kama Yav anyway. So Rav Kohen challenges this. He says maybe this coat he only gave him to pay for the first debt. And with respect to the first debt, that's like Ganav Parbachovo, Ganav Barba Kefo. Barba Zuzi Basrai, so maybe he's only paying for the first one, and that's like paying for your debt. And in the last 4 dudes, maybe just believing him like he believed the beginning. Maybe he's not giving it to him on credit. They ruled like Rav Kohen. They ruled against Ravina, who was making his father-in-law return it without getting any money. Narsha, a person that come from the place called Narash, Ganav Sifra, he stole a book. Zamne le Papunai, he sold it to the people from Papunai. Bitamnan Zuz, he sold it for 80 Zuz. Azul Papunai, the people from Papunai went, Zavne Labar Mechuzah, and they sold it to the person who came from Mechuzah, but may have asked for Zuz. So the first guy bought it from the thief for 80 Zuz. The second guy bought it for 120. But so Fukar Aganif, then they found it was stolen, and they found Amar Abai, Lezel Mari de Sifrei, the Yahivi Bar Mechuzah, Tamnan Zuz. He says, give it to the guy from Bar Mechuzah, 80 Zuz, Vishakal Sifrei, take your book back. And then he could go get 40 from the guy from Papunai. Meaning to say, because they said that the Konas Hashuk is only for if you purchase it from the thief, but not if you purchase it from somebody who purchased it from the thief. And so therefore the Papunai, therefore there's Takonas Hashuk from the Papunai, but not from the Machuzai. Okay. Well, if you're saying that if you purchase it from a thief, you get to apply the principle of takonas hashuk. Of course, if you purchase it from a purchaser, for sure, it's even more attenuated. For sure, we should protect them. No, the guy who wants his book back has to give the last guy 120 zuz. V'shakal sifra. And let him get 40 from the Papunai and the 80 from the Narshai. All right, that's the Kanas Hashuk. So now he says, next Mishnah. And this guy comes with his barrel of wine. And this guy comes with his jug of honey. Then the honey cracks. So he pours out his wine to save the other guy's honey. So he doesn't, since nobody asked him to do it, he just gets paid for his work, meaning to say for his labor. Says, I'll do it, but you have to give me you have to reimburse me for my losses. Then he has to reimburse him. Let's say the river came away and washed away his donkey and the donkey of his friend. His donkey was worth 100 and his friend's was worth 200. And he put aside his donkey and he saves his friend's donkey. He only gets paid for his labor. But if he says, I'll save your donkey and you'll reimburse me for my losses, then chayav l'teimo. And they agree, then he has to give it to him. The Gemara asks a series of questions. V'amai, why does he have to ask him to be paid for it? Why do we say he only gets his labor? He could say that he actually gets all the honey. Why doesn't he claim, listen, you were about to lose the honey. I grabbed the honey, it was about to be destroyed. I got the honey that was basically ownerless at that point. And then we learn, and if somebody's holding jugs of wine, the Kadei Shemin and jugs of oil, the Rosh Mishtabra, he sees they're about to break. He can't say, I'll perish. He can't say, oh, wow, I'm about to lose this honey, it's about to be destroyed. I'm going to declare it. Now I'm going to give it as my taxes. I'll pay my taxes to the temple from this honey and oil. That's this wine and oil that's about to be destroyed. This is the truma and the mitre on my fruits of my house. Because it's ownerless at that point. So if that's the case, why do we say you have to pay and give him back the honey? It was ownerless. He could have kept it. So Kedamar of Yirmiyah, Kashakal based abad karachal. No, there was a netting around it, so it wouldn't have been destroyed. The Gemara says, Achanam Kashakal based abad karachal. Well, if that's the case, Vim Amar Amar Klum. So if that's the case, why has he said nothing? Why has it said nothing? Why isn't it a good truma if it wasn't about to be destroyed? Have a great day, Dan. We'll talk later. Got to put together my team. Maybe Bill's a basketball player. Basketball player? Those days for me are gone. Now I'm gonna be the GM. So the Gemara says, let's say somebody's coming along the road and he's got the money in his hand. Va'anas kenegdo, and he's got and then somebody's coming along the road, Va'anas kenegdo, And what happened is the robbers come to attack him. Well, you can't say the money in my house is consecrated onto this money, the truma in my house. So there it does list. It does work, and here it doesn't. So the Gemara says, he could save it. If he could save it, then why can't he do it initially? So the Gemara says, so we can only save it under duress. The Gemara says, where he's going to lose money, he can't use this subterfuge. Why not? Let's say he has 10 barrels of tevel tame, of untithed produce that's tame. And he saw one of them was about to break. Or became uncovered. Omer arei trumas meiser. He could say, okay, that's the one, that's the truma. Al teisha chavoseh for the other 9. But for oil, can't do it. They have say Cohen because the Cohen is going to lose the money. And it says Rabbi Yirmiyah k'sha'akol beis abad karachoah. So Rabbi Yirmiyah explains that case is different because there he has the netting around it. So since the netting is around it, it's not going to be considered like he's losing the money. He's going to be able to save it. That's why he's able to do it. So the Gemara says, it makes sense if it breaks chazia. Then if it breaks, we understand that if the barrel breaks because he's going to stop it from all pouring out, el nisgalta. But if the wine was uncovered, well, my chazia, what could it be used for? Once wine is uncovered, you're not allowed to use it because maybe a snake came and put their poison into it. If you could say you could use it for like perfume, they used to use the wine for perfume. You can't even pour them into public because the poison is in it. You can't even mix it with bricks. You can't even use it as a cleanser. You can't even feed your animals with it. So what would it be good for? Gemara says the other rubber mesanenes. No, you could filter it out. And Rabbi Nechemia, Tanya Mesanenes, Yesh Ba Mishum Giloi, we learned in the Braitza that if you filter it out, you still have to be concerned. But Rabbi Nechemia says, Emes Mai Bizman Shatachtona Megua. That's only when, after you filtered it, the snake came and drank from the bottom. But where the top one was covered, then because you filter it out. Because the poison of the snake is similar to a sphog and it doesn't get mixed in. It stands in its place. So the Gemara says no. That's where it's not mixed up. But it's also, but if it's mixed, it'll be prohibited. So the Gemara says, well, Hasam Nami, also in this case of the barrel, he could put something, a garment, on top of the barrel, and so then the poison won't get mixed in. Rabbi Nechemia mitarmin. And so the Gemara says, does Rabbi Nechemia really say that you're allowed to take tithe from something tamei for something else tamei? Vatanya torme min tamei al tamei, min atar al tar, min atar al tar, avlo min tamei al tar. He says he doesn't allow you to take this tithe from one thing that's tamei for another thing that's tamei, unless it will be a case of demai. So how would Rabbi Nechemia be consistent? Gemara says hachinami b'shal demai. Yeah, we're talking about that this is the type of produce that's called demai, that it's only really a doubt whether or not it was not untithed. Gemara says, so therefore we're lenient in the case of tamei and tamei. Gemara says Amar Mara b'shemen hoyasikain. But if it's oil, you can't do it, and they have to say Kohen. Because the Kohen is going to lose money. The Gemara says, Mashna Shem, and why in the case of oil will he lose? Because he could use the oil, even though it's tamei, to light with. Well, Yayanami Raya was ziluf. Well, the wine he could also use as a perfume. So if you say, well, that doesn't cost anything, perfume is nothing. Shotin milog besela. That when the wine is being bought for one seller, then you use it for drinking. But when it's being bought for 2 seller, then you use it as perfume. So if that's the case, we see from here that the perfume is worth a lot of money. So why would we say it's not considered like you're costing the Kohen any money? And we're talking about new wine, so that's not good for perfume. But you can make it old. So the Gemara says, no, that's not a problem because that you're not allowed to do to asiludei takoa because by leaving it around, you're going to come to use it if you're aging it. Gemara says, shaman nami asiludei takoa. Well, the tame oil, you're also going to come to use it accidentally. The Gemara says, the manach bequimos. No, you put it in a disgusting utensil so that you know not to use it. Well, yayanami manach bequimos. We could also put the wine in a disgusting utensil. And Gemara says, hashtu azivav kabaywe bequimos kamanach. If you're going to use it as perfume, when you put it in a disgusting utensil, that doesn't make sense. Whether or not you're going to use something, we'll stop here. We'll pick this up. We'll stop here. Yeah, shkoyach to everybody. We'll stop here.
Thank you.
Shkoyach.